Hi, and welcome to week 4, my final week of my songwriting project with KCTCS. This week has been all about the recording process, so you're not going to see me on the screen very much. You're actually going to be looking at my work with a DAW, a digital audio workstation. I use Logic. There are a ton of DAWs out there. Just do your research in deciding which one you want to use if you are interested in doing electronic music like this. So what I did this week is I recorded a piano backing track, some vocals, and then I added some fun little spicy stuff and mixed it all together. It was a very simple mix, and if I had had more time, I would have loved to really delve into the details of it, but with just a week, I wound up just recording using mostly presets and just did a little bit of fiddling at the end to balance it out. So let's take a look at what I did. So the first thing I did after I set my tempo and made sure all my file settings were right is I recorded a piano track. And this is because, first of all, I knew I wanted to have piano in the final mix, and secondly, I knew that having a piano track would be something that I could build around as I started recording. Whether or not I'm recording vocals or instruments or whatever, I wanted to have that sort of solidity of a piano track throughout the whole thing. So I recorded my piano track. I messed around with the presets a little bit and wound up with this Bösendorfer. And I thought it sounded the most full, and I liked how resonant it was. And then I recorded my track. And after I did that, I went ahead and recorded vocals. So there are a lot of ways to approach backing track and vocals, but with this particular song, I knew that the vocals I wanted to be sort of the main star, and so I wanted to record them as soon as possible so I could then build the rest of the instruments around my vocals instead of having the instrumentation and then just sort of placing my vocals on top. So that's what I did. I recorded my vocals second, and I used a take track, which is essentially I just recorded it multiple times and put all of those recordings in one folder, sort of in Logic. And from there, I could splice together different parts of it and get it all, in a nice line using different parts of different times I recorded it. I cheated a tiny bit. There's one line that was too long for me to sing on one breath, so I sang half of it, and then I sang the other half, and then I spliced them together, so it sounds like I'm singing it all in one breath, but I'm not actually. This is something that I try not to do as much as possible. I personally like having vocals that are as natural sounding as possible. This is entirely a personal preference. It is not at all better or worse than having vocals that sound less natural. It's just where I tend to go toward. But there was this one line that it was awkward to breathe pretty much anywhere in the middle of it, so I decided to have this little cheat. And that's how I recorded the vocals. After I recorded them, I left them raw. I didn't edit them until I had recorded all of my instrumentation. So I left the vocals as they were, even though they sounded a little messy and kind of weird because I was recording in a microphone and there was no reverb because it was a microphone. But I decided to leave the vocals as they were and then mix everything together at the very end. And after I recorded the vocals, I added instrumentation. Aside from piano, I added 3 other instruments, just using Logic presets. I knew I wanted to have something higher and sort of twinkly above the piano, and I messed around with a lot with should I just do another piano that's 2 octaves up, or should I do chimes or something? And I eventually landed on a marimba instrument that Logic has built into it. It's not a sample set, it's a synthesizer that has lots of different stuff going on in it, and it's pretty fun. It's nice and twinkly, and I just played around with that, figured out what I wanted it to sound like, and then recorded the marimba part. And because I was not as practiced at playing the marimba part as I was at playing the piano part, it took me a few recordings on a few different chunks that I then spliced together. And then I had a marimba part that sort of twinkled above the piano part. And from there, I knew I wanted to have something low underneath everything, and so I found a really fun pad synthesizer. And a pad is it's a thing that doesn't have a very, very fast attack, so there are no real percussive sounds with it. It's sort of slow and woo. And I use that pad. They're often used for mid-range, mid-frequency stuff, but I decided to use it for my
low end frequency. So I dropped it down an octave and just played a really simple bass line on it. And it's fun and kind of spooky. And I just made sure it wasn't overpowering, but it was there to fill out the bottom part of the frequency spectrum. And then finally from there, I recorded a drum beat. So the drum beat I did a little bit differently. I didn't record myself tapping my piano. I built a beat in Logic has a function called Ultra Beat. So I just built a drum beat in that, and then you just drag and drop it into the track. And I edited it a little bit and made a couple different versions. One that was sort of more full for the faster parts of the song, and then one that was a little bit sparse for slower, more pensive parts of the song. And I just looped those wherever I thought they belonged, added a couple of little cymbal crashes, and called it good. So now that I have all this stuff, I need to make it work together as a cohesive thing. And the first thing I did with that is I balanced the levels, which is essentially just making sure that the volume in each track is the right level. It's not too loud, not too quiet. It mixes with the rest of the song. So a way that I usually start out doing this is I mix to pink noise. Pink noise is a lot like white noise, but it has one crucial difference, which is it doesn't treat every frequency the same. So it is a bunch of sound at a bunch of different frequencies, but it actually has louder low frequencies than high frequencies. So if I play pink noise and I make all of my tracks just barely audible above that pink noise, the higher frequency a track is, the softer it'll be. And that's great because humans are better at hearing high frequencies than they are at hearing low frequencies. So when I take that pink noise away, I have a much more balanced track, or a much more balanced song. This is a very crude, broad strokes sort of thing. So once I mix to pink noise, then I go in and I fine tune all of the volumes and make sure that everything is exactly at the right level I want it to be. But pink noise helps me get a starting out point. From there, I went through, I edited my instruments just a little bit. I messed with some reverb to make the marimba sound more echoey and spacey. And I just did a little bit of tweaking in the instruments, but I really edited my voice. But Skylar, you might be saying, you like having natural sounding vocals. What's that about? This is true. I didn't do very much editing on my voice. Definitely not as much as you'll find in a lot of the professional studios out there, partly because I am not a sound engineer, I am a songwriter, and partly because I like to really emphasize the natural tendencies of my voice, even if that means it sounds a little imperfect. So the only things I did are I edited the equalization just a little bit. I made the frequency map of my voice just a little different to bring out some of those higher ringing frequencies, and I cut down on some middle frequencies that can make it a little grating sometimes. And then I compressed it, which essentially means I took the super high stuff and made it quieter, and I took the super quiet stuff and I made it louder. So it is more balanced from beginning to end than it was before. And then finally, I added a little bit of reverb, that is that echoing room sound that you don't get when you record in a microphone. And I added just a tiny bit of a delay, which is essentially just take this audio and delay it and play it at different times very quietly as an echo in the left and right side. And this in moderation, in a ton of moderation, I think it's at like 1 or 2%, can make a song sound a lot more full, especially from the left side of your hearing to the right. The left of your headphones to the right. It adds different things in each ear, so it makes the recording sound more full instead of having everything stacked on top of each other right in the middle. So that's what I did to the vocals. It is very minor editing, but I still wanted to make sure I enhanced them and made them sound as good as I could. And then from there, the last thing I did is I added a limiter on the whole song. It's similar to compression. I just made sure that nothing was too loud, nothing was too quiet from beginning to end. This isn't thinking from track to track. This is from the beginning of the song to the end of the song. Are there sections that are too quiet or too loud and too different from each other? So that was what I did to edit the song. And here is how it sounds. always been a wanderer at heart. I never really felt like taking part in settling down in some little town for a decade or two. And even though I've loved everywhere I've lived, it always felt like something had to give. I didn't feel lost, just a little exhausted, wanted something new. So I bought a blue bicycle with shiny new rims on the wheels. A blue bike and went east with the wind at my heels. But sometimes I miss the salt in the air and the comforting voices that told me they'd always be there. The silence of thousands of stars, not the rushing of cars on the highway. It would have been nice to say goodbye, but I got my blue bicycle and freshwater breeze in my hair. My blue bicycle and gold autumn leaves in the air, and the trees in the sky. And I'll tell you that I'm writing letters that I never planned to send. I've learned the beginning won't come until the end, and I'll always call you home. Not saying goodbye was the loneliest feeling I've known, but I don't want to stay stuck in my mind, so I'll have to learn to say my own goodbyes. I'm keeping memories of you alive as I move on my blue bicycle.
Thank you all so much for joining me as I wrote this song over the past month. It's been super duper fun writing without really knowing exactly where I was going. I started out with just knowing what the lyrics were going to be, not even knowing the time signature or the mode of the music. And from there, moving forward, it was really cool to sort of let the song unfold as you all voted on what I was supposed to write. So I definitely am going to be doing projects like this in the future, so stay tuned, and thanks so much for watching. Bye!